Happy Pride, everyone. This, the following, will blow your mind. So saddle up because we're covering some ground today. Every June, while we're celebrating Gay Pride, we'll inevitably hear about the twin cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and how the Lord burned it all down. Yet a deeper look at myth gives us a clear cut case that it's a misnomer and the co opting of another tale, and show the likelihood that the twin cities likely never existed. The actual point of the story is about inhospitality. Now, where the yachts would I get such a reading of it from the text? I have to go to the Greeks' Hellenistic world for the answer. So let's get to the parallels. Divine visitation while disguised, coming destruction for wickedness, hospitality, and finding goodness in an unlikely place. In Baucis and Philemon, Zeus and Hermes are disguised and seek shelter. Turning everywhere in the town, the doors are shut in their faces. They travel through town and come to the home of Baucis and Philemon, who instantly take them in, get them seated, and greet them. The point is likely that though they are in poverty, they still extend the little they have to their guests. They have a stool that wobbles, so Baucis kept a little block to steady it as they tend to their guests. They serve fresh fruits, olives, eggs, and wine. And noticing that no matter how much they've poured wine, the pitcher remains full. Realizing divinity in their midst, they want to give Zeus and Hermes some better fare. With their sights set on the sole goose that guards their humble abode, their feet are no match for the goose, and when they're tuckered out, the goose takes refuge in Zeus's lap. After a bit of reassurance from Zeus that there is no need to kill their only goose, they tell the couple to get to higher ground and that the town will be destroyed shortly. Baucis and Philemon get to high ground and look back only to see their entire town flooded. Behold, there is something grand where once stood their humble cottage. It is now a temple to the gods. Later, Zeus and Hermes grant Baucis and Philemon the wish that one of us not die before the other, but the same hour shall take us. Upon their death, the couple were changed into intertwining pairs of trees, an oak and a linden, standing in the deserted boggy terrain. After hearing the story, we can see where the inspiration from Genesis 19 comes from, even though there is more added to the story. In Genesis 11, Abraham is introduced as a righteous man. He later pleads for clemency for the city of Sodom in Genesis 18. Prior to this, Lot, Abraham's nephew, splits from him because their sheep have intermingled so much that the servants are arguing. This shows how rich they are. Now the stage is set for us to go into the plains to Sodom. In this retelling, the strangers are out in a square at night. Lot bows before them, asks them to come with him and lodge for the night, as it was dangerous for strangers to be out. He fed them, and then later the men surrounded the house. He offered his two virgin daughters. They refused and demanded the strangers, and he withheld them as it was his duty to protect his guests. Also, the act in this case was not of lust, but to humiliate the guests and do harm to them. Let's keep this in mind for Judges 19 as well, the duty to protect the guests. After the angel struck the men with blindness, Lot makes his escape, and he tried to convince his sons-in-law, but they would not heed. Now, a couple of verses ago, didn't the writer say that they were virgins? So how does he have sons-in-law? Lot, his wife and daughters, left to go to higher ground and were instructed not to look back. This reminds me of the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice when he was told not to look back. When they climbed toward the land of the living and saw the sun, he looked back to Eurydice, and she was promptly taken from him. This penalty, however, was turning into a pillar of salt. I found out from Myth Vision that there is a place near the Dead Sea or some, nearby where pillars can be of salt can be as tall as people, and the author could have known that and posited that as a warning. Also, a large reserve of oil where spontaneous combustion occurred could be how the writer explained fire consuming the Twin Cities. No evidence has been found for the fabled site. Now we can see how the Bible is influenced by myth. Not only here, but also in the flood narrative, which is inspired by the flood narrative of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and even the Garden of Eden inspired by the Sumerian narrative. Later on, as the Jewish people were in exile, we see the Hellenistic influence and Persian influence of a conscious hell and an evil deity, God's opposite, to explain evil in the world. But moving back to mythology in the Bible, there is so much when compiled together that it undermines the character of God as the same yesterday, today, and forever. I hope that this has shown you that the Bible is not a unique book that can only come from the mind of the divine. It is no more a book of, excuse me, it is no more a book of the divine than the Odyssey is for scientific discovery of sea travel. It is a group of people finding commonality with diverse writings to explain their history. It is not history, it is legend. So I do plan to cover the Epic of Gilgamesh very soon so we can see how Noah's Ark was influenced by it. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Have a great